Everyone. I'm so glad that you are here. My name is Sarah McAllister, and I am the Associate Director for Career and Professional Development here in the Office of Alumni Relations. Our Director, Nicole Bush, is also joining us here, and if she is going to run point person for any technical difficulties. So if you have any issues, feel free to direct message her in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing and just welcome Teresa, Bruno, Warkentin. Thank you so much for being here. Before we jump into the official session, one more thing I forgot to mention is, as you know, this is being recorded and it is going to be posted to our professional career and professional development YouTube channel, which I'm gonna drop in the chat really quick. So this is where you can find this recording as well as previous recordings. So please check that out afterwards. So with that, Teresa, I would love for you to just do a general introduction, what your current role is, and anything that you think would be helpful to share about yourself and your background.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for welcoming me today. My name's Teresa Bruno, married in Warkentin, and I am a Newcomb 07 graduate. I moved on from Newcomb to NYU and then Columbia. And my main role is I'm an educator. I'm also a teacher trainer and a teacher educator. So currently I'm at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I work to help prepare those undergraduates and graduate students who want to become teachers. That's my field, but I often work with graduates and undergraduates all around in academic success and academic counseling to help them kind of find what's best for them for their career and for their work. So my passion is really just helping others, and mainly my work and my research focuses on multilingual learners. So those are either children who don't speak English at home or are coming from another country, or alternatively, folks who are English dominant and are studying in bilingual education and want to learn a new language, which is a real joy and a priority, especially for us Tulanians. And I'm really happy to be here today and speak with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Teresa. So I know that really just to kind of piggyback on what you were already sharing, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, right? So today we're going to talk about kind of how do you navigate that decision between professional certification and grad school? So I'd love to hear a little bit about your own personal experience in pursuing graduate degrees and or professional certifications. What questions did you ask yourself before taking the next step?
Thank you, Sarah. So for me, I love to learn. And I really enjoyed my time at undergrad, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And I knew for me, the next step, regardless of what it was I was deciding that I wanted to do, was going to be graduate school. I thought originally when I was like late sophomore, junior year, preparing for my tests, all these things, these milestones we take. And if you're an undergrad, type in the chat that you're an undergrad. And if you've already finished your undergraduate degree, let us know too, because I can kind of guide our group based on what y'all are thinking and making decisions for. So if any of you are currently in undergrad, you might be thinking, oh, do I need to take some tests? What do I want to do? I thought I was going, I actually don't want to date Nicole Bush, but she was helping me decide about grad school back then. And I thought I was going for an MBA or a master's in business management. And then Katrina and ended up working at the French American School using my languages. And I found that I wanted to do education linguistics research. So I found my way through a wonderful professor in the French department to a fellowship. So that being said, how did I find my way? I talked to my faculty. I used my advisors like Nicole, and I talked to my faculty about what I was doing and what I love to study. And that helped me find my way to grad school. Thankfully for me, that helped me find my way to a fellowship, which is code for they pay for your grad school. Sometimes it means a job, a fellowship. Sometimes it means research. And sometimes it means they give you a scholarship. And in my case, it was all three of those things, which really set me up for success. Sadly, leaving New Orleans, but finding the next 13 years of my career in New York City. And through that, I was always thinking about what is it that I want to do? and not just work and the job and what is required for the next job I want to get, but looking forward to that. And for me, that meant both professional certifications because I'm in a teaching field, licenses, licensure. So that's tests and fingerprints and all kinds of government stuff for me. And it also meant graduate study, uh, almost all the way up through the PhD, but life happens too, right? And also recognizing when life happens that it's okay to take a pause, and to go more deeply into the career and take a break from the studies, especially when it's doctoral work. So that's just kind of how I found my path towards my field, but other fields match this in the same way of picking the milestone and making the choices.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you saw in the chat. So we've got definitely somebody who just finished their undergrad, and then also someone who just finished their global MBA program.
Oh, great.
Most likely, since this is marketed towards alum, everybody's got at least a bachelor's or master's.
Wonderful.
Finished undergrad. Awesome.
Recent graduates.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, both in your personal experience and in your professional advising and mentoring, as people are thinking about which direction to go in. What are some common mistakes that you see people making when they're trying to decide which direction to take their career?
Thanks, Sarah. That's a great question. I would say it's not thinking forward enough, right? They're looking just at the next job, which is a really appropriate thing to look for because you need a job, you need a roof over your head, you got credit card bills to pay, student loans, and you need food. So they're trying to think, what is just the next step I'm going to take? But really, it's the forward thinking of where do I want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now? And that's going to require more of a time and money investment, whether that's in graduate work or a professional cert, to get to the next 5 and 10 years, as opposed to getting the roof over your head. But it's hard to think about that. We want to be sensitive and understanding too, to realize that people have immediate needs. So you need to make decisions both for that immediate need and for that longer future. So that's kind of the bigger mistake I see, is people not having a chance to be so forward thinking. And then also looking at, okay, so this is what I want to do now, but how is that ever going to transfer in what I want to do later? And that's a hard question. It's like, oh, it sounds simple when you're counseling somebody. Whoa, what do you want to do? And I'll be asked sometimes, I don't even know what I want to do. And I'm very well advanced into my career. And I stop and think, am I doing what I want to do? And it's okay to think about that. But that's a really deep question you have to search for, not just about the next job, but really about where you see your career going.
I'd love to go a little bit deeper with that thought. When, because I'm thinking about the alums that I've worked with that don't even know the questions to ask themselves to figure out where they want to go. In your experience, what are some maybe techniques, potentially assessments? Like, how do you have that conversation when they're just like, I don't know?
It's tough. And it's tough to take pause because especially us Tulanians, we're always going, right? Like, we are working hard, we are playing hard, we are studying hard. And it is sometimes meaning taking a pause. And COVID gave us sort of that, but a lot of us filled that void with even more business or with being stuck at home with children and no one to take care of them, like a lot of us, right? So that pause wasn't really there. It's taking pause, and you can do any online inventory. You can do as many Myers-Briggs or this or that as you want. It's not going to really tell you who you are. You have to take time and stop and think about it. I think also it means, Sarah, talking to, you have people, we have this wonderful alumni network. Talk to people who you look up to. When you're at our networking stuff, even if it's online in meetings, and you see somebody and you're like, I just love them. I look up to them. I want to be like them in their career. And if it's a Tulane person, you know they're going to call you right back and have coffee with you, right? And tell you, how did you end up getting there? What steps did you take? And those steps are going to differ because that might have been, I graduated in 2007. Like, that was a while. I don't want to say how many years ago, right? And it's different now, and recognizing that, but really seeing what exactly is it going to take. And if you're not able to answer a question for yourself yet, thinking about the people that you look up to and asking them, even if it's not a mentorship capacity, because it's hard, especially for us women, to find mentors, right? To think about how they got there and taking the time, if not following that path, because your path is obviously going to be different. Something else too, and I tell my recent undergrads this who are thinking about specifically grad school. If college was hard for you academically, like if it was hard to get that 3.5, or if you don't have a 3.5, if it was hard for you to pull that 3.0 in your major to get out, then grad school is not for you. It's a hard conversation to have. I have a advisee right now who's thinking about exiting elementary education because she wants to be a lawyer, and she has a 2.8, and she's a junior, halfway through her junior year. And I had to sit her down and be like, I know you might not want to be a teacher anymore. That's cool. But you're probably not getting into law school. And there's like a dead silence, right? Because like her mama didn't tell her that. Mm-hmm. And I had to, like, all those ski weekends up in Boulder, you're not getting into a law school that's going to be worth your time and get you to a career where you might want to be with a 2.8, period, right? So it's having tough conversations with yourself. I see Lauren has a question in the chat. Lauren asked, do you have any advice for someone thinking of going back to grad school? Yes. And getting a degree a few years after undergrad? Absolutely. In fact, grad schools, as someone who does grad admission, we love to see people who left undergrad, tried out real life, and are thinking distinctly about what they want to do. Because you have work ethic, you have your feet on the ground, and you're really making this decision, not just because it's the next thing, right? That's another mistake when Sarah's saying people are like, well, I'll just go to grad school because it's the next thing. But the other side of the coin for that, Lauren, is a lot of people think if I just do my grad school in something different, then just having that study is what's going to change my career. It's not the grad degree that's going to change your career. It's the next internship. It's the networking. And it's the professional studying that happens in that other grad degree. All the same stuff you had to do in undergrad. Because I know some people, even some Tulane people, that left Tulane, went and got a good job in New York, and then went to a top 5 MBA program and ended up right back in their same exact job in New York City. I'm not going to name names, but it's more than one. And they were like, I went to this expensive MBA and I thought I was going to get a different job. And I came back and I got my same job. Because they, in their career, what they were doing at that time, and for this person I'm thinking of is a dear, dear friend, and it was publishing. That's an industry that's just having trouble and has had trouble. So for her going and getting that fancy MBA, but thinking that was going to advance her in publishing, which is a field that has been struggling, right? Wasn't the answer. But she loves publishing. She stayed in publishing and she moved up, but it wasn't because of the MBA. It was because of her work and her dedication to her field. But if you asked her if she was here to we were trying to get a panel, but we had to change the date in Ida, and it was hard. Sarah worked so hard. And then we're like, we had architect people. I was going to get this friend who I'm telling this story about, and she'd tell you, she'd be like, I love my MBA program. I learned a lot. She did. And she was in a financial position where she had support, so she didn't have to take on too much debt. So she doesn't regret it, but she ended up with the same job. So that's something to think about too, about your field. Yeah, your question, Lauren. Yeah.
Yeah, Lauren, let us know if you want some more clarity. I'd love to one thing that you and I and Nicole were talking about before we got started was about ROI trends, kind of the interruption of all the different things that COVID has interrupted. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of just what do you see?
Before COVID, graduate enrollment in higher ed in general, especially in private institutions, was down. COVID came and it really went down, especially undergrads in public institutions. I'm not sharing a slide. I have like loose numbers on this. If you want to let me know. Really went down. And then when campuses started to reopen up this academic year, we had a bit of an undergrad bubble at public institutions like where I work, because a lot of my public institution folks were like, I'm going to stay home and do community college and not spend the big bucks when I can't even do anything fun on campus. So, and now we have this bubble of undergrad enrollment, but graduate enrollment is still down. So that means people are finishing undergrad and questioning whether or not they want to do a grad program, which could then be online, that they might not want to study online. They're questioning their career path because we see these articles, it's the great resignation, right? So they're really starting to figure out what is the return, what do I want to do, which is a hard question to answer. And then if they do know what they want to do, they need to figure out what's the ROI, what's the return on the investment of my money and my time in either graduate school or a professional cert, or do I just go and start working, right? And that's kind of what's going on right now. I'm like, you're not here today because we're recruiting you for Tulane grad. We love that, right? I'd love you to come up to Boulder. We're research one too. I think Tulane's better though, I'm gonna be really honest. But all of our enrollments are down, and it is a reality of what's going on in higher education in general. And it's a reality of the uncertain economy. So it's understandable that if you're not completely sure of your path, that you don't want to take on debt if you're in a situation where you have to do that. And I wouldn't advise somebody to do it unless they were really sure about what they wanted to do and that was the way to go, and they had that passion. So it's like the things you want to assess for yourself. Like you want to assess what's your passion for what you want to do. If you don't have a passion for it, don't go to don't do it. Like don't even follow the things to check off, right? And then if you do have a passion for it, when, where, and how are you going to invest in that? And that's kind of where it comes to the grad school versus professional cert kind of thing. Because I mean, grad school is a whole nother academic commitment. And that also comes into the like, do I like school? Do I like writing? Do I like reading? Grad school is practical in general, depending on your field of study. However, if you don't want to read 100 pages a week, don't do grad school. Think about more of a professional cert that's going to be specific job training. And that kind of answers to Alejandra's question is, do you think you want to get a job related you want to do or getting a grad school cert? That's going to depend, right? So this is where the joy of the internship comes in while you're studying. A lot of places you can't get your foot in the door until you have the license or the certification or the degree. So joining into a grad program or a professional cert program gets you that internship, gets you, or sometimes they call it externship, it gets you in the door to start your professional practice. Some fields you can enter into entry level and get your feet wet, try it out, and then you'll hit the ceiling, right? As I'm like in my mom's basement with these pipes. I don't do backgrounds anymore, y'all, just so you know. Like it's real life. That's my version of feminism. Like straight up, my mom's upstairs with my kid. I'm in her basement. We're having an extended holiday. So like you hit the pipe at the bottom of the basement and you can't move forward anymore until you get another degree or until you get certified in something. And a lot of this stuff around professional certification, we're talking about outside of the medical field and the teaching field and, like hairdressing and so on and so forth. What we're really talking about is the tech stuff. So you'll see online like, oh, get your Python coding in 6 to 8 weeks and things like that. Those little certifications, if you're in tech, are going to look a lot different on your resume than your master's in computer engineering, right? It's putting you on different paths. And that's kind of also the professional. I know business folks that are like, oh, I am working in institutional finance, but I'm taking a class in coding and I kind of want to make this pivot to working in a tech company and doing consumer facing programming. And like that, you're going to need a certification for that, right? You don't need to go back and do a master's in computer engineering. So sorry, I am still a professor. I do teach, so I ramble. So please just jump in. I hope that kind of answered Alejandra's question about, do I work and then do the cert? Do I stick? Because the answer is it depends. And then I see a question from Forbes about what's your advice in terms of pursuing grad school full-time and work part-time or vice versa? So That's a really great question, Forbes. And the question is your part-time work going to be in your field? Is it going to be job experience in your field? And if the answer is yes, absolutely yes. If the answer is no, I'm going to stay in my old job while I do grad school for my new job, you're not going to be giving yourself 100% in your new world, in your new studies, right? However, I'm not so ignorant not to say, yeah, but I have rent or a mortgage or mouths to feed. And you might need to slow that transition. I would say if you're really going to dive in and you can afford it, full-time grad school and part-time job, it just depends on your life stages, right? For me, it was full-time grad school, internship that came with the fellowship, and part-time job after, because New York's expensive and I like nice things. So that was, I had like my full-time grad work, my internship, and then I had other like a couple days a week side work that I did for spending money because yeah, I'm just full honesty. Like I could have gone without nicer things, but I wanted them. So the whole poor grad student thing did not work out for me. I had work so I could still do the nice things that I wanted to do. So, but really, Forbes, the answer is if you're going to do it 100%, because you're not going to regret that if you can afford to. But that is a luxury to be able to afford to do that, to do grad school full time and just check it off. But even full-time grad school needs to have that internship in the field that you're pursuing to give you the full benefit.
Teresa, I'm curious. I think both Alejandra and Forbes' question go really well into the topic of, and I'm curious if you think this is more of a unicorn experience or this is something that more people can think about, is finding a job or using your current employer to fund your graduate degree or certification.
So we have to remember that that is a wonderful thing. And like if you work for Tulane or another college, you can take your classes in whatever you want, right? I am interested in something totally different. You know, we've got like Sarah and Nicole working in career services and alumni, but say they're really interested in taking a course on art history over at the Newcomb Institute, and they can do that. And maybe they're going to pivot into cultural restoration, right? Like super cool. Tulane's like, great, here's your credits. That's the unicorn of higher ed. Like right now, I'm a professor. If I want to, I don't have time at the time because I have a toddler, but like in my previous work with City University of New York and State University of New York, I was taking Mandarin. I was taking interesting classes about indigenous people's arts because I just liked it, right? It wasn't a career advancement thing. That's the higher ed unicorn, right? Where we get to take classes because we're interesting for the joy of learning. In other businesses, if they are going to pay you to advance, it is going to be for their benefit because they're looking at the ROI on you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to pay for you to go towards a management program, it's because they want you to be a manager for them. They're building you. And that's not just for them, it's also for you, right? That being said, I know all of us here already have our undergrad. There are many businesses, and Target is the one that come to mind because many of my students receive benefits from them, who work before they finish their undergraduate degree. And there are wonderful businesses out there supporting people who can't yet finish their undergraduate degree without financial support and the job. And they are supporting those employees to finish their undergraduate, which is wonderful. And it's not because they think they're going to stay working at Target. It's because of their giving back to the community and giving back to their employees. And Target's not the only one. I just work with students specifically under that scholarship. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing of a company that gives back to their employees and their communities. But realistically, if you already have your undergrad, you're in a Fortune 500 publicly traded company that wants to pay for you. The one that I'm thinking of is the program that goes through CORS. We have a lot of Tulaneans who come into the MBA who get their money through CORS. And they're putting you through that training for you, but it's really also for them because they're looking at that ROI as well. Does that kind of answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I know Verizon also has a pretty good
Yeah.
one, but yeah, so it's not total unicorn, but kind of is what
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
the
Yeah.
same with Verizon too, right?
Yep.
If you're working Verizon retail, they have a program that's going to help you finish your undergrad, and maybe you don't work at Verizon anymore. But if you already have your undergrad and they're going to train you up, both with professional certification for technical fields
Mhm.
and with graduate study, it's for them because they want to keep growing you and working with that company, which is a wonderful thing. So, like, if you're working at a company that has that benefit already and your manager suggests that to you, take it because that means they believe in you and they want to spend money on you in addition to what they're paying you.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. Unless you hate your job and then don't do it, right? Um, because the idea of, oh, they're going to train me up and then I'm going to leave and go somewhere else is going to be hard because they're going to train you up to what they need, not necessarily what their competitor needs.
Yeah, no, that makes
Being
sense.
like a little snarky on that, right? Like just being a little critical of that situation.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's really helpful. As we're talking about kind of financial matters and discounts, I just want to make sure everybody saw the post that Nicole put in. So this is a fairly new benefit to all alumni, but if you are interested in pursuing a graduate degree or they have a ton of professional certifications, the School of Professional Advancement is offering a 20% discount to all alumni. So check that out. She dropped the link in there. So shameless plug for that.
Not at all. And I want to point out the Tulane School of Professional Advancement has a lot of certificates that put you towards a graduate degree. So if you're, and not just Tulane, other colleges too, but Tulane's best, right? That if you're not totally sure about something, you can look on there about certifications that eventually give you credit towards a graduate degree if
Mhm.
you're thinking about that later.
Yeah, very good.
All
Thank
right,
you.
go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, no, that was great. Um, in terms of kind of the general topic of today, is there anything else? I also want to make sure everyone has their questions answered, but is there anything else that you think would be helpful for everyone to know?
I would just say think mostly, and this has been the hardest thing about COVID. You can look at data when you're looking at under thinking about applying yourself, right? When we look at thinking about applying for undergrad, it's really easy to compare programs and schools, and it's very much standardized. And I can grump all I want about the College Board as a nonprofit, and that's a whole nother webinar. But it's actually thanks to the research work of the College Board that we can easily compare undergraduate institutions. That stops there. It's really hard to compare different grad degrees, even at Research One institutions. Like you can pull up Tulane's grad degrees and Vanderbilt's grad degrees right now, or even NYU's, and you're gonna feel like you're looking at apples and oranges. Um, it's even harder then to compare professional certificates that, depending on the field, don't even have requirements for what makes a professional certificate in that field, right? So when you're doing your research, don't get overwhelmed because just the internet is going to feel like an unequal place for information. So, my big advice would be lean on real live people, people like Sarah, people like Nicole who know all the stuff. Even I'm here for you. Um, and like I said, your mentors, or even not your mentors, just somebody you look up to in their career. And just having a coffee will help you figure out how they got there. So asking the people, if you're looking at a grad program or you're looking at a professional cert and it's not clear online and you can't compare, trust me, their admissions rep or their program director will want to talk to you. Not just because we're enrollment's way down, y'all. I'm gonna just be total disclosure. Like they're gonna talk to you, they have time. But because they know the best about their program and they want to tell you about it. And believe me, they also know who their competitors are. And I do this all the time. I have people call me, either, well, now for Boulder, but previously when I was at City College in New York City, and I would send them back over to NYU. I'd be like, listen, you have a really strong GPA. If you can afford it, you can get in over at NYU. But if you also don't want to spend the money, come be with us at the public college because I'm teaching at both places, you know? But really just talking to the program directors or the admissions reps, because they want to tell you, they know their competitors, they know their students, they want you to be successful. So just not being afraid to email them and request a Zoom or call them up.
That's awesome. I also want to piggyback on what you just said. For those, I can have Nicole, will you drop in the YouTube channel link one more time? So in terms of finding people, I know Teresa, you mentioned earlier on about reaching out to the Tulane network. So we've had previous webinars where we've had some career coaches really do a deep dive into how to find alumni on LinkedIn with some tips and tricks. So I would absolutely piggyback on your advice and both using our previous resources in terms of how you can really find those alums who are doing the work that you're interested in doing. Yeah, so in terms of actually, how can, if people do have more questions, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. I'm gonna actually pop my personal email into the chat because it's just us. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is painfully behind, woefully behind. And that's on me because I'm busy doing academic research presentations, and I got to do a business trip for the first time a couple weeks ago and present my research in person. My LinkedIn's super behind, but you can also reach out to me through there, and I'm going to type my personal email into the chat. And you can, and I'm gonna just give you my cell because I don't mind if you text me. It's okay.
Awesome.
We're all Tulaneans. I feel like after all my work on the alumni boards, I feel like half of Tulane has my cell phone number anyway. So, and I would just love for you to reach out to me. You can see me on LinkedIn, but it's not super up to date. I got to do that. Doing this made me realize I had to update that because I'm always like, my LexisNexis is up to date on my research, but my LinkedIn isn't up to date. So be in touch, and I can help you in general, but if you're at all interested in any type of field in education, and that doesn't just mean teaching, I'm absolutely here for you because that's something we've evolved to have at Tulane in response to Katrina. And that's how I came about it. I didn't come into undergrad thinking I was going to become a researcher, a linguist, a teacher, and then a professor. Like, I thought I was gonna I don't know, do French translation for, actually I think Nicole almost got me a job at Air France. It looked really good. Fly places. I'm super happy with my career and what I do. I love my work working with immigrant children and their families. But yeah, maybe I thought for a hot minute I was gonna do translations for Air France, and that would have been cool too, right? So it's all an evolution, and it's knowing yourself, being kind to yourself, and supporting yourself. But that also is gonna know, whatever you decide, whether it's grad degree or professional cert, the answer is work. The answer is a ton of work, and that's a good thing, right?
Teresa, thank you so much. I'm seeing all the just appreciation in the chat. This was fabulous, and I so appreciate your time. So we're going to end at that, and have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care and have a happy holiday.
You too.